ClapperCast. I'm your host as always, Carson Timar, and today I'm joined by the good old Nicolò Grasso to review Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness. Continuing a conversation we really started back with Poor Things in December, we once again look at the dynamic director, this time producing an anthology film looking at 3 different stories of toxic power dynamics. We will go through these shorts one at a time before discussing the piece overall to determine if this is another highlight in his filmography or a strange bump for a very promising director. As always, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I will say this episode, I am out of town, which you will know if you watch the video version, but if there's anything audio-wise that's a little weird, that is why in this episode. But again, thank you so much for listening, and now let's get to our review of Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness. Okay, Nick, and today discuss Kinds of Kindness. I think it's best, because this is an anthology film, to get into the individual parts, and then we'll come together at the end and discuss the overall project, continuing a conversation. Again, if you've at home not watched our Poor Things review, would highly recommend you watch that before this, just to kind of get warmed up on our thoughts on Lanthimos. But let's start out the death of RMF. I can quickly give a bit of a recap here. Jesse Plemons plays Robert Fletcher, who is completely controlled by his boss, like in every way in life, completely bought into this power dynamic that everything is going to be controlled by Raymond, who's played Willem Dafoe. And then Willem Dafoe says, you have to crash your car into this and go like hard and injure yourself and go to the hospital. Robert is not feeling that, which I think is justifiable. He does not want to injure himself. And Raymond's like, okay, fine, you won't do this for me, then never talk to me again, get out of my life. And Robert's like, oh my God, no, I want to still be in your life. What can I do to make this up? Gets into that. Nick, what were your thoughts on the segment, The Death of RMF, to kick off Kinds of Kindness?
I really liked it. Dare I say love it. Out of all the 3 segments, it's probably the one that could easily work on its own as a standalone film of sorts, as a medium length or something that could be extended. And it's almost the perfect introduction into this world and this reintroduction into the style of Lanthimos, because it's very different from Poor Things and The Favorite. This is the type of movie that's going to make some people very upset, and those are the people that have basically only seen Poor Things or have only really liked Poor Things by Lanthimos. And I could tell there were some of them at my screening. But we'll get to that with the second episode, with the second chapter of this anthology. But for the first one, I did not know what I was getting myself into. You know, the movie starts off with sweet dreams are made of this, just blasting, and I was already hooked. But I really liked it because I'm very fascinated by power dynamics in the workplace. And this segment is all about that. All 3 segments take something that's kind of relatable in a way, different aspects of contemporary society. And Lanthimos and the screenwriters, Philip, would take it to the extreme. And in this case, what are the lengths that we would go to in order to please our boss? In order to feel like we are worthy? I don't know how much into spoilers we can get.
I think in spoilers, I'm fine saying this is a spoiler filled.
Spoiler filled. One thing that I really liked about this episode for me is that you're watching a man who has everything, and he has everything because he is being controlled and manipulated by his boss, who's Willem Dafoe, which is something I can relate to. Like, if I was in his position, I'd be the same. Boss/lover as well. Interesting dynamic. But the moment he starts to rebel for something that's complete, like you said, like completely relatable. I don't want to injure myself heavily, and I don't want to kill another human being. The boss shuts him off, and it makes him realize that actually, to me, you are worth nothing. You are expendable. I can find someone just as desperate as you to actually do this thing that I want, who turns out to be Emma Stone's character. And I don't know, there was something very comedic about it when he's trying to kind of like recreate his romantic encounter with a new partner and all of that. There's a lot of very fun moments in this, but overall, I found it to be very dark because of what it ends up being. Just disturbing, man. Just disturbing. How did you feel about this first part? This first.
I really liked it. I mean, as you kind of mentioned, a return to form for Lanthimos. I mean, I love Poor Things. That is, I think, my favorite Lanthimos film. Again, full review.
Same, probably, honestly.
But he undeniably probably with, I mean, it's in The Favorite, it is in Poor Things, but undeniably, I think from that point on, he starts to morph into something different. This does feel like it has a lot of the comedic wickedness of his earlier films. I just rewatched The Lobster and like, it's so funny. I really like this premise. I really think, especially when it comes to performances, there's some great performances throughout. Jesse Plemons throughout the film, I think fantastic. He really stood out, but I think especially in this one, how it blends and how it transforms itself, that character, from being someone who, again, seemingly has it all, has this amount of strength, and then just clearly has nothing and just has like the mind of a child in some ways. I think the one thing that was frustrating to me about this, and we'll talk about this overall with the film, is I feel like I get that they're shorter premises, but it does feel like at times you lack a conclusion because of how these are structured. And I felt a little bit underwhelmed by the ending of this. I feel like all these could have been like, it's interesting because like I think even if you made them each an hour and maybe put them, not to be blasphemous, on like Netflix or something, right? That was digestible. I agree. Like in the theater, they're fantastic,
So
but
the Wes
I think they
Anderson
could have been.
anthology.
Exactly. I feel like, or I mean, because it's hard with the premise like this one specifically to be like, this could have been a full movie. I think the other two easily could have been full movies. This one's a little bit
Right?
lighter. Like, there's so many small moments of writing that are so clever and so just funny when you think about it. There's a moment where Jesse Plemons goes to a bar and you've learned that he's always been forced to order non-alcoholic drinks, and he gets to the bar and like it's just so casual how he doesn't know the name of any alcohol,
Yeah.
and it's like the funniest thing in the world. But yeah, just looking at, I guess, both talks, I mean, this entire thing in a lot of ways about toxic power dynamics and toxic relationships, but this one especially within the workplace. And I think it is interesting showing this dichotomy of someone who does have it all, who has this ideal life in some ways, but then when you break it down, has nothing. And kind of what do you value then in life? What do you value as like, is it worth it to have nothing substantial and have all this on the outside? And then the Emma Stone bit is fantastic, but I wish we got a little bit more. I think we got a little bit more into Raymond. I would like that a little bit
Mhm.
more into his side of things here. But definitely enjoy this overall. And again, like just right away, you mentioned the music, like immediately hooks you, immediately has an energy. This one really, we'll talk about the pacing because this is overall long film. I think
Yeah.
this one is paced really wonderfully, and it immediately starts and fires it up to where I was having a good time and I was definitely enthralled. But when it ended, I was a little like, I want 15 more minutes.
Yeah. One thing I have to say, especially like between me and you, and I honestly, I don't know why this never happens, but Italy got this movie first in the world or close to that. We got it in the beginning of June. And so I went to watch it with basically no one from the States, no one from the UK that I know who had seen it. And so I've had almost 2 weeks now or actually exactly 2 weeks, I think, to fully digest it. And definitely one thing that I will say for the entire film is that I always felt a bit shocked outside of like the content, and we'll get to that properly. But like you said, like the pacing, where the stories go, where he decides to end them, I was like, oh, okay. Um, but in a way that always at the time felt playful, and in this one, it's so bizarre because the entire story is about this man who's trying to take control of his life and trying to become his own person. And he realizes he's just pathetic and actually worthless without anything in the world. So he does what he was supposed to do. He ends up killing RMF. He drives to the home of Willem Dafoe, and he and his young wife, lover, whatever Margaret call it, just embrace, and she just gets a electric keyboard and starts playing a song. And I was just like, oh, and credits starts rolling. I was like, 2 more hours of this. I mean, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. This is bizarre, and I'm kind of loving it. But again, it's something that over like 2 weeks I've appreciated more. These big swings, especially because it's bleak. Like none of these stories ends where you're like, like I'm thinking the ending of Poor Things, which is easily the most optimistic of any Lanthimos movies. It's like sweeping music. You have Christopher Abbott like a goat and everything, and she's clinking the class, and it's a
A girl
triumphant
boss
ending.
moment.
And girl boss mo is like, heck yeah, you can put it on a t-shirt. Instead with this one, every ending just makes you feel like absolute garbage. You just feel like there's no reason to go on living. It's like everything is worthless. Like people are terrible. People are terrible in order to feel love, in order to feel like they have something of worth, something to give. And it's so depressing. And it made me think about how many times I've found compromises for toxic relationships of like the workplace environment, to be honest. Like I was in a very shitty situation a couple of years ago. If you go back on the podcast, you can feel that energy sometimes back then, but like late 2021, early 2022. I was just like, man, like why don't you like me? Why don't you like me? I want you to like me. I'm here. I'm doing my best. And the boss, whoever, just doesn't respect you. And so you end up, finding compromise. You start doing things that are questionable ethically, morally, but you do it because you think this is the only way they will respect me. And so to see this taken to the extreme with like, oh, you have to actually like kill someone. I'm controlling your entire life. I'm controlling what you're eating, when you're having sex with your wife, all of these things. To have it culminate in something that extreme, and then it leads, what does it lead to? It leads to affection. It's superficial. It's probably going to lead to Raymond wanting something more out of him, but in that moment, that's all that matters. And it was just bleak, man. Just bleak. And it's what, 50 minutes long? It's like there's
Yeah.
2 more hours of this. I'm going to leave the theater feeling good about myself here. Probably won't.
Yeah, it's just that, I mean, it's a weird like hauntingness that Yorgos crafts where like also like
Mm.
it's interesting because it's twisted in a way you don't think, because how you describe it just then, it's like, oh, the fucked up part is that he has to kill someone or he might kill somebody, but then you also learn in it like it's just he brings strangeness in this really beautiful way to his scripts where it's like it's not actually that he's killing someone, well, like he is, but the guy agrees to die. So like, how does that
Yeah.
affect it all, right? Like, it doesn't make it does because like when you describe each one of these shorts or you describe most Yorgos films, I think it's really easy to kind of boil it down to like a sentence and be like, this is what's happening. But like
Mhm.
the morals are far more twisted and complex than that, and it's just always is fascinating. I mean, with all three of these, I think it really plays on. I think that's a very explicit, clear goal of him, right? In these films, is to introduce something and then kind of twist it a little bit on its head. This one less than the others, but there's all these like twisted, like weird, just elements, which I love. I love the fact that like, and the thing about Yorgos's writing is like it is strange, but also it's all logical. It all makes sense, and it is genuinely funny, and it's
Mhm.
genuinely like meaningful and thematic, and like there's weight to it. There's so many projects also just out there that like look how weird we are. We're being so crazy and weird, and like I think Yorgos does it in this really obvious but really kind of understated a lot of the time way that I really appreciate. And I think this one, out of all three, probably does that the best. Where like
Yeah.
nothing is fantastical that you're watching, but like it is so off, but in this way that doesn't feel like a gimmick or it doesn't feel just random. Like it really works for me.
Mhm.
But like just you talk about the morals of it, like the complexity of him being like, because if Raymond was just like kill this guy, then obviously that's a moral wrong. But Raymond is like, there's no issue. He agrees to die. We see that he does agree to die. Also, it's not like a lie.
He
So
tries
it's
the first
like
time and fails. Like that's
right.
what basically the movie almost starts in, like the second scene or something.
Right. And when Emma Stone hits the guy, it's the same guy. So like it's not, it's just like, then what is the issue? And I guess that's a really great question, I guess, to pose on the characters and us, where you get this uneasy sense of like, then this film is forcing you to value a human life. And also like, though if that human consents to die, like, is that still wrong? Or how is that different? How is that similar? It's just, it's a
Mhm.
really kind of, it's a dark question, but it's just off though. It's not evil. It's just like dark. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's very specific. I think even with this, I'm still not super sure about its meaning, what's it trying to say or do, but the fact that Raymond, Willem Dafoe's character, keeps giving gifts to Jesse Plemons and his wife Hong Chao. It gives them sports memorabilia of accidents, of like a broken tennis racket, or what did Sienna's burning part of like
Yeah.
a burning vehicle, and it's like a football that's been destroyed or whatever. It's something very specific, and it's all about this element of destruction and and just things going wrong. I don't know. I don't get that. I haven't even thought about that element that much, to be honest, even though it is prevalent from the beginning to the end of this entire sequence episode vignette. But yeah, I think it's the specificity that makes it feel so compelling to watch. Even the choices, for instance, like all three of these stories have very specific locations and styles to them in terms of the environments. It's kind of like starting in the center, like city center of New Orleans, and then going to the outskirts as the stories go along. But also, one thing that I really loved about this is the way that it shoots everything, because the previous film, some people hate it, we like it. It's very kooky. It's the wide angle fisheye lenses and then these tilted Dutch angles, whatever. With this movie, it's almost exclusively wide shots, like very wide shots with characters where you can see them from head to toe, and then out of nowhere it would jump to these extreme details of a lemon being squished, of lips kissing, of someone touching someone else. It's just like, ugh! It makes it so much more uncomfortable because every single shot it's taking its time, and there's a lot of room to breathe, and it's just like something's going to go off, and then it gets so like way too close to someone. It just adds to the entire feeling of uncertainty, and I think that's something that I really liked about this as a whole.
Yeah.
Even though we'll get to some of the other stories, but I didn't know where they were going to go. Like I was never like,
Yeah.
oh, I know exactly what's gonna happen here, except for like the actual ending of the movie, which is fitting. But everything else, I was like, I don't know where we're going with this. I don't know
Sure.
what's gonna happen.
um there's like, again, even the editing, as you mentioned, there's one, I forget which short it was, but there was one where there's like this extended kissing scene, which I think might be the weirdest kissing scene, where it just is super focused, zoomed in on the lips, and it just goes
Yeah.
on and on and on and on. Yeah, it does create this really great, and not, again, not in a fantastic way like Poor Things, but it just,
Mhm.
everything's a little off, and I think that creates a really compelling viewing experience. But like, I am curious because I do have this urge. What this film naturally makes me want to do is like rewatch it. I will
Mhm.
say, like, I do want to go see this, but I think it's one of those on the first watch, and I don't know if it's because I've only seen this once, and if you go watch it, you can break it down, or if it's in the nature of these stories being shorter. But like, you can identify a lot of pieces in there. For example, in this first one, the fact that everything is from a damaged sports thing, and you can even get into like, I'm sure there's something here being said about the profitability of disaster and of crash and destruction, the morals of that. But like, I don't know if I see in any of these except the third one where I'm like, it all comes together. You know what I mean? Like, I think this has a bunch of puzzle pieces I can see. I don't know if on a first viewing, I necessarily feel like this film gives you the ability to fully put them all together. But I guess the fact that like you've seen it 2 weeks ago, I saw it 3 days ago, I'm still definitely like, I'll find myself sitting there chewing on the film. And like, even
Mhm.
just talking with this, like, I didn't really even consider the nature of all those sports things. So, like, putting it all together, the memorabilia.
Was he an insurance man? I'm actually starting to. I was like,
Oh, he
maybe
might
was
have
that
been. He might have been.
maybe because I don't think we never get into what Jesse Plemons and Willem Dafoe are actually doing
No.
in here, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like
Oh,
high rise,
because Jesse has to go to a construction site, so it might be insurance or something like that.
and that's maybe
Yeah.
how it goes into, like you were saying, like is expendable, RMF accepts being killed, and might be
Yeah.
for insurance purposes. Maybe I don't know.
Well, and also, what would be the point of like, obviously, some Raymond wants this crash, wants this destruction of the physical body to go to the hospital, right? Like, why does he want that? What is he getting from it? So again, like, there are pieces, and we can move on to the second one. But like, I think my overall thoughts on the first one is like, well, I guess similar to most of my thoughts on all of it. Like, there are pieces here that are really worthy, very entertaining. Definitely, I think it could have spent 20 more minutes and hammered it all in together a little bit more. But like,
Yeah,
definitely, there's something here I appreciate greatly, and it sounds like you do also. Would you say this is your favorite? Like, in your ranking of the three, where would you put this one?
I would probably say it's my favorite, even though the second one has some very like this just speaks to me. This is like
Sure.
primo Nicolò Nick obsessions. But no, I'd probably say this is the most consistent one.
Yeah.
Um, Probably the one that balances the darkness and the humor the best. It
Yes.
delivers both laughs and gasps like throughout its runtime, which feels the shortest. Even though I honestly don't know, like I haven't checked any data about like how long each sequence is. But again, like you said, it's like 2 hours and 44 minutes or something like that. So it's like an average of 50, 45, 50 per episode plus six
Right.
minutes of end credits. So it feels the shortest.
I agree with that.
Especially with the easily my favorite Jesse Plemons when he has to injure himself. He's just like whining in the hallway. Oh, I broke my hand. It's like, oh, I'm not gonna stop for you. No, stop. Just pathetic. Just such a ridiculous man, and it's amazing. It's amazing where he and the rest of the cast go with the next two stories. The
Yeah.
way they just like change looks and change register, it's impressive.
Drastically changed looks, especially Jesse Plemons. And the third one he showed up and I was like, oh, we're back in Civil War for some like this is crazy. Um
Might have been the same time actually. That's the haircut. You're
it's
right.
literally I mean it's exactly the same.
You're
I
right.
don't know the recording schedule, but I was like, whoa, like what a twist from what we've been at.
Yeah.
It's also funny knowing the promotion for all these because they'll be like a lot of the promotion weirdly came from the third one. So you're waiting for people to look like they do there, and you're like, oh, I guess that's coming because you look completely different. And I didn't realize this was what I was going to be experiencing. So with that, we can move to the second one though. RMF is flying. This tells a story of a young couple. The woman disappears. She's gone. And the guy's like, where did she go? All of a sudden she comes back and he's like, you're not my wife. This is an imposter. This is weird. There's some other plots throughout here, maybe about some cannibalism and stuff. That's kind of interesting. Nick, what were your thoughts on RMF is flying compared to RMF, the death of RMF?
This was borderline transcendent in the cinema. I was having such a blast with this. Out of the three stories, it's probably the messiest in terms of character motivations, in terms of pacing. It feels the longest. Um, you really don't know where the fuck it wants to go. It just takes these constant twists and turns, narratively speaking. But it's probably the one that touched me the most, and also it's the one that shocked me the most. It's easily the one that shocked most people in the audience the most because quite a few of them left. There is light spoilers for first, then we're gonna go into full spoilers with the second episode. But just there's an instance of violence in here. The first big one with a finger, and that was like holy shit. And I could feel behind me just the energy, just the vibe shifted. And then Jesse Plemons asks something to be done. And when he was describing it, I kid you not, like 5 or 6 people, just different groups, they just stood up and left. They were like, I don't want to see this shit, you know. Uh, just the promise, the thrill. This felt thrilling in a way that I really rarely feel when I watch movies anymore. It felt dangerous because, like you said, it starts off in a very subdued way, kind of lightly funny. You have, Jesse Plemons is a cop, very depressed. Oh, my wife is gone, and I don't know. I thought, oh, maybe she left him. Maybe something bad happened, and she was like, "I'm done with you." He's a cop after all. And then his friends are like supporting him, and he's like, "How can we just watch the video of the good days? Can we just watch that? That would make me happy." It's just like they're like, "No, no, no, we don't want to do that. No, let's just watch the video." I was like, "What the fuck is this video gonna be?" And it's a foursome between the two couples. I was just like, "This is." I'm in this story already. I don't know where it's going, and like you said in the premise, like where it goes, it's almost like an invasion of the body snatchers type of story, only where the taking over of the body never really happens, or does it? It's unclear. Um, if the first story is about the things we're willing to do in the workplace to be accepted, this is about the things we're willing to do in a relationship to be accepted. And what's the most twisted thing? And then I really want to hear your thoughts on this. One of the many twisted things in here is that Jesse Plemons starts asking his wife, Emma Stone, who he thinks is not her because the shoe doesn't fit, and now she's eating chocolate. She hated chocolate before. She cannot be. She must be someone else. He asks her to do some things that are actually cannibalistic in nature, just like cook parts of herself for him. And he says that like he despises that, like, oh, she's sick for actually doing that. But in the moment when he's asking it and when he receives the food, he's clearly enjoying this dominant position, and you don't really see what happens next. You only hear him describe and denying, like, I didn't eat it. Oh, it was disgusting. It was awful. Taste. I even said something like, I didn't eat it. It tasted like something. Like, I did taste it. What? It's how do you know the flavor? How do you know the thing if you haven't actually tried it? And he keeps asking and talking like she's the twisted one, and then he asks her the most vile things, and then you see him actually like assaulting a woman and licking a man's bleeding hand. It's insane. But the most, again, like in the first story, you're watching it, you're like what, where is it gonna go? And it ends in tragedy. It ends with this woman who goes to a very extreme length of self-harm in order to please the man she loves. Her father rightfully says, this man is fucked up. I have always hated him. Why don't you leave him? And she says, don't speak badly of him because I still love him. He's a bit weird, things are off. Just a little bit weird, but I love him. There's so much to unpack here, I think. Like with all three stories, but this is the one that just has left me thinking about it more and more, especially with how it ends. But we'll get to that in a second. Carson, your thoughts? I'm so curious.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think overall, this is my least favorite one, but I think it has my individual favorite moments of the entire thing.
Yeah.
There is so much here. And as you mentioned, it's a very, very messy film. Because I think what this was for the first half of it was fine. What it transforms into in the latter half, when it just becomes Mother, which shout out, go watch our Mother review, was transcendent. And I was like, this is actually beautiful and incredible and shocking. A lot of walkouts. I'll say there is 4 real walkout moments in this film, because I saw in LA with like a packed theater, which in San Diego, never. There's no one ever in the theater. But this was 5, like a whole huge Dolby Cinema of people. After the first one, which is fine, valid, go,
the film is over.
Your vibe.
Whatever. 3 hours, quick.
Then it was the finger moment in this, where people said, oh, I don't want the gore, which is fine. A lot of walkouts. The biggest group of walkouts was after the second one aired. And then there was also a group of walkouts about 10 minutes into the third one, where they were just like, actually, I can't do another one of these, which is fine. But this one, again, like, as you mentioned, I think the acting is strong here, but like, there's a lot to break down here about identity, about power dynamics. Again, Yorgos, and we'll talk about this especially with the third one, introduces a world where you think you have a connection and understanding of every character and where they sit on the totem pole, if you will, of having power, and then it reverses and change and shocks. Seeing the ending of this with him asking her to literally physically destroy herself for him, leading to her death. And there's so many great lines here where he's talking about what she's doing, and he's like, I wouldn't taste it. It's gone though. The cat ate it or something ate it, but I definitely didn't. Don't worry about it. And then the ending, which again, spoiler filled if you're not clear on that yet, but she finally kills herself to the point where she can't come back. The liver is out. She fully sacrificed herself for him. And then all of a sudden she walks in the door, which I take as, again, with Mother, it's a repeating cycle. Another woman is entering the door and is about to go on this huge journey. And as soon as she dies, he'll be on to the next. That I think was a beautiful reading and really elevated for me the second half of this. But if you want to read this film with that reading, the first half and her disappearance and all that, it starts to get a little bit muddy, where I'm like, I don't know if I want to be taking what I take as a theme and like I have to spread like it's like fitting a bed sheet on a bed, where like I don't necessarily want to be on the corners pulling it to fit. I wish it fit a little bit better, where I think this has something. I just think also, though, it was a lot of ideas trying to fit it in a short film. With that said, though, again, not that the pacing is bad per se in this one, but also there's a point during the middle of this where you realize, and if you split the runtime equally, it's about 55 minutes a short. I think obviously they play around with that, but like you do start to notice the length in this one also during that time, where I think again it ends really strong and sets you up really with good energy for the latter, the third story here. I think that also did not help. So I don't know. I guess I was not feeling the first half of this, but then it got me at the end. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, it definitely when Emma Stone comes on the scene in this one, it's when it picks up. It's like, oh, okay, this is where we're going. Because again, it just kept me guessing. I honestly didn't know where it was going to go. I was like, oh, this is a sci-fi kind of story. It's very familiar. It's like we've seen this many times. It's like, oh, a person in the house is not who I think it is. Someone's taking their place, and I don't know. At one point, I was like, "Oh, he's right. What he's saying makes sense." But then you have other characters rationalizing. They're like, "Well, maybe like she's been stranded on an island. She's the sole survivor, basically, of a boat crash because she's like a maritime researcher, biologist. Um, she's the sole survivor, and she's had to survive on chocolate bars and whatever else on this island. So it makes sense that like her body has changed and her taste has changed because of this necessity. So you start to rationalize it, and then it ends with this fairly fantastical ending, which was incredibly bittersweet because it's her again coming through the door, and like you said, it's the cycle repeating itself. um but also maybe it's actually her who's come back from the, but again, like you have to kill yourself in order to become the idealized version of the other person. If you want to, if you love someone and they are not loving you back, do you just leave them like everyone's telling her to do, rightfully so, or do you just destroy who you really are and become the person that they want you to be, kind of transforming again? It was very, again, like bleak, and it took me a while to kind of like get it. Like in the moment I was just like, what the fuck? And then it goes into the end credits, which connect to a dream that Emma Stone's character had while she was stranded, which is about this society where everything is inverted and the dogs are in power and people are dogs essentially, and you have this montage of dogs just living as humans, which is um sudden but also very fun. There's a Dio song playing over it. And also I was like, wow, like he's going for it. He's going for it. Not super sure how to connect, and that's also actually like maybe like we were talking about the sports memorabilia in the first episode. You have this conversation about the dogs that leads into the end credits of this sequence of this part. I was thinking like, how does it connect to this episode? But in a way it kind of connects to just the film as a whole. It goes beyond just the simple like narrative that you're in. I don't know if it makes sense, because I also have this RMF of the
Yeah,
titles that just keeps popping up. He's the only like same character played by the same actor. It was like a Greek notary and friend of Lanthimos and the screenwriter Philippou. It's
right.
random as hell. um,
I do think there's a thematic connection here. I think what especially stuck out to me with one and two is like um, the unequal value of the other person in a relationship. In the first one, obviously, it's more business related versus a romantic relationship here,
mhm.
depending how you want to read stuff. But the fact that both of these people are willing to do whatever it takes for the other person, the one with the power, ultimately by the end, and then as soon as they can't deliver, whether they die in this one with her cutting out the liver, or in the first one he won't do that, immediately they just move on to someone new. Again, it kind of depends how you read the ending of this.
Mm.
So I appreciate if someone doesn't view it the same way and it kind of falls apart. But that was definitely there. The dog scene was weird. By the way, if you don't like animal like cruelty or violence, there is like a very brief shot of a dog hanging themselves, just FYI. Sorry, buddy. But yeah, like definitely I thought, for anyone in the audio, there's a dog behind me. That is why I said that. I don't know. It's just, it is hard because I think the ending of this is the most satisfying for how I read it.
Mhm.
Go check out the Mother episode, everyone. Yeah, I love Mother. And it literally becomes Mother in my opinion. But
Yeah.
it is the most rewarding part of this film for me thematically and with execution. But as a whole, I just like, if I in my mind experiment, if these were put on in Netflix as a miniseries and I was just watching through them, this is probably the one I wouldn't rewatch. But like at the same time, it's the one I feel like I get the least, so I would want to rewatch it. I don't know. I don't know. It just this one for me doesn't have that clean energy that the other two have.
I feel like because there's a lot of talking in this movie, lot of talking. Um, and one thing I really want to rewatch, one reason I really want to rewatch it is because I'm sure I missed so many like bits and pieces, especially in the first half of this one. Because again, like good thing, bad thing, debatable, but buying multiplex always has an intermission, like smack dab in the middle of the movie. I don't remember exactly when it happened in here, but it was a bit after like Emma Stone had come back. Um, so it made sense. It was like a nice little thing before we get into the nightmare that is the second half of this episode. But yeah, like if this was a straight 3 hours, I definitely like my mind was starting to wander a little bit. So to get the chance to like go to the bathroom, stretch a little bit, get some more soda and sit down again. Definitely gives you that energy that maybe kills the tension, narrative tension, but also
Mm,
kickstarted my brain again in a way that made
yeah,
me more aware of what was happening afterwards. So to be honest, like probably some things happened and were said in the first half of this second part that I didn't really
sure.
catch. I was just surprised. I only remember like the foursome on TV. I remember the introduction to Jesse Plemons is pretty funny, where he's just like gently stroking convict's face, just like
Right.
look at him. What does the boss say? There's like the cop, police officer, chief, whatever, is saying something like he looks at her like he wants to fuck her or something,
Right.
like it's his lover.
Then he's walking away. He's like, that guy was looking at me weird. What was up with that?
It's there's again like for something that's very dark and a lot of the humor is like pitch black. Like you have to write a very twisted wavelengths in order to appreciate some of the
Yeah.
humor. There are some genuinely just funny moments in this.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
Even just the reaction to that Joe Alwyn has to getting shot. Just like the scream he has, like the bleeding hand. I was like, what the fuck? This is amazing. And then
Yeah.
Jesse Plemons goes to lick it. And people are also kind of chill about that, to be honest. Like his friend is like, I mean, it's a danger
Yeah.
to others, and the psychologist is like, nah, it's fine, it's fine. Which also feels like um, purposeful commentary on, in a very small way, but on police brutality
Yeah.
and police force. How easily all of their crimes are justified and swept under a rug. There's a professional looked at him. It's no
Yeah.
problem. Maybe take a few days off. You're a bit stressed. All that he becomes a recluse, and he starts making excuses for not going out. But then he says it's his wife who's
Yeah.
forcing him to do that, and all of these things. Incredibly toxic character, incredibly toxic relationship. Um, Maybe triggering to some. I don't know. Like
Sure.
of all
I
the
think
three
this film in general could
episodes,
be very triggering.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there's a there's a lot of. I would recommend everything if you have any trigger warning, maybe go check that out before you see this. I mean, it gets very explicit at some points.
Yes, it's a movie I
Not
cannot
the, yeah.
really. Maybe jumping ahead for the ending, but just I haven't been able to recommend this to anyone.
I
I
don't.
watched it.
Yeah.
I was like, I really liked it. I don't know who could enjoy this. Like even some Lanthimos fans that I know have watched it. Some of them loved it, but others didn't. Even people were like, "Oh, like Dogtooth and Abs." So I was like, I don't know who this movie is for, because even for like sicko cinema fans, it is very long. It is very slow. It's very sick and twisted, but like you said, in a
Yeah.
restrained way compared to other movies that are trying way too hard to be edgy and to be shocking and in your face. Um, but this just made me uncomfortable. This sequence, especially, in a way that again, sick and twisted, I crave. There's just something so weird, especially thinking that I was in a multiplex where this movie was being shown to mass audiences in an Italian town. Just amazing. Like there were walkouts. This never happens at screenings like this. Like never. I was so happy in a way. In a way.
Oh yeah, no, cinema is back, and like for this to get such a big release, like I am very grateful for that. Even Poor Things. I mean, I
Yeah,
granted award seasons like strange with the release dates, but I feel like that film did not get that huge of a release. A strange one to put out there. Um, this being I don't know what it is in Italy, but like this feels like it should be a neon film. It feels like it should be an A24 film, but it's not. It is really taken on like this is going to be a mainstream film, and I don't think a lot of people in general will respond to it. This is not one, like you said, I could recommend to like my friends, or I get to recommend certainly, to my family or anything, right? So like, um, but it is like fun. I think though, I think if you like older Lanthimos, this is gonna work for you overall. But like, undeniably quite long. But the second one, yeah, I don't know, it was good. Maybe moving on to the third, because I not gonna lie, this is the one that really got me.
hey,
RMF Eats a
nice.
Sandwich. I loved RMF Eats a Sandwich in a way, which is interesting because at the end, when I first walked out, I was like, oh, I don't like the third one. But the more I think about it, I don't know if it's great, but like the story is you see this woman, this guy, Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons, and they are searching for the one who has the power to bring dead people back to life. They're traveling around trying to find her because they belong to this cult who believe that they are all pure. They all live life in these weird ways. They only drink this certain water. They all have their water bottles that they're drinking out of. But they believe the one exists and they're out to find it. And at first, you obviously are like, oh, it's a cult. It's bad. They're like crazy people. And Emma Stone keeps going to the town where her husband and her child is, and she keeps sneaking in to like read her diary and leave her little gifts and stuff. And you think, oh, wow, she was got by this cult. It's so bad. So sad for her. And then one day she gets caught by her family. She goes to dinner. She gets drugged. She gets r'd by Joe Alwyn. Pretty disturbingly, you find out that there is the one out there that exists. It's real. This cult is real. And it kind of all twists itself on his head where it's like, when you look at it at the end, I was talking to friends about it and they were like, well, the cult's like supposed to be bad. I was like, I don't think there's anything really about them that are bad. They seem like really nice people once you realize like it's real. I don't know politically how I feel about that, but again, this is one where it's like that very twisted narrative is there to where it does keep you engaged because it keeps redefining itself. The ending to this, which turns out to be the ending of the film, is like very, very funny. It probably got the
Yes.
biggest laughs out of any moment in the film, where she finds the one, again, spoiler alert, and she has her in the back seat, and then she accidentally gets in a car accident and kills her, and she just has to sit there after thinking like, because she gets kicked out of the cult, and finally she's like, this is gonna get me back in, and then she realized like she's fucked it all. um yeah, again, like I always think narratives, and it's probably a bigger conversation, but like religion in film is interesting. Religion being justified and turns out to be real in film is always very strange to me and doesn't work a lot of the time. There are some good moments, like I'm sure we talked about this a bit with our Exorcist review and stuff, but again, the politics of this I'm unclear by. But I think as a narrative, walking away from it, this one feels the most put together. It feels the most clear, the most digestible. My one complaint is I wish Hunter Schafer was used more. Really just
Yeah.
here for that tiny little scene. But overall, I did have a lot of fun with this one. Nick, did you have fun with RMF Eats a Sandwich?
Absolutely. Honestly, just by the time the title popped up, I was like, I'm waiting for that action. I want to see RMF enjoy the sandwich. And spoiler, you do get that. And the mid-credit scene, I was like, yes, nice little, nice little moment to cap off the film. But no, I really like this. It's probably like you said, it's probably the funniest of the 3 episodes. Even though it does have a very strong disturbing moment, the one that you mentioned with Joe Alwyn. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. It's a scene that just keeps going and going. I was like, fuck me. Um, as uncomfortable as it should be without feeling gratuitous, which is not always a given with Lanthimos, especially with the early films like Dogtooth goes places with showing things. And this one is more restrained, but it feels as well more horrific. Um, in here, he's tackling faith. He did workplace, he did love, and now he's doing faith, religion. I don't even necessarily see it as like as a good cult. They are right, Yeah, maybe she's just
What do they do that's
delusional.
bad though? They're
Uh,
like so nice. They even when she's like kicked out. I guess we don't know if like truly it matters if she's pure or not. And they do kind of like when she has nobody kick her to the curb, but like they give her money. They're like, I
yeah.
think they are genuine in trying to be nice.
I don't. It's still a relationship of control that they have instilled. They
Right.
cannot drink water that, and again, like the implication is that the water that they're drinking is the tears of the founders. Because you have this scene of Willem Dafoe and Dong Chao are playing the cult leaders, these bisexual cult leaders who engage in orgies and sex with everyone from the cult, which again they are the only people that they can have sex with. That's the other implication. Because that's how they maintain it
Yes.
pure. They can only have sex with the founders. They can only drink the water, which is again like tears, because you see them like forcing the tears to fall into this big pool of water. I was like, is this all of their tears? I don't. I like to think it is. Maybe it isn't, just logistically
No,
speaking. But it would be
sadly at
amazing.
they have the scene where you first get to the compound and they show them with the line of buckets. I think they're filling it up from the ocean there. I think it's
Okay,
ocean
man.
water mixed with tears. I don't remember exactly, but
I
I do
wish
like
it's
the idea
just
of them all
tears. That would be
crying.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was
Oh, I
just tears.
agree.
But again, like it's an incredibly controlling relationship, and the only
Yes.
goal that these cultists have is to either have sex or find the one. And it governs their life. And they, like Emma Stone's character, she has left her house, she has left her daughter. She cannot even really go see her because that's not allowed. I don't know. It's not. I don't know. I would say it's a particularly positive cult. Um, and it plays into which it's not too different from the first episode, to be honest. It's like, does the end justify the means? And like in the first one, it's like, well, why doesn't he kill the person? Because after all, it's consensual and there's no real crime being committed. It's all purely moral and ethical on your end if you're willing to do that or not. And with this one, it's like, well, how much of this is justified? How much of this can be accepted as good? Because in the end, ultimately, there is this one person who can raise people from the dead, which is um, surprising. And it leads to some very tragic things. Like you have the Margaret Qualley character who's like, well, my sister definitely has this power. And if the
Right.
prophecy says, the twin has to be dead, I'm just gonna like dive head first into an empty pool
Yeah.
and and kill myself. And it's like, holy shit. Oh, oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
that's a lot of faith that you need to have there, which again like turns out to be true. That is that good. Like
Yes.
is Margaret Qualley, I don't remember the name of like the twins, but like is the surviving twin gonna be like, oh, it's cool that my sister did this?
Right. I mean, I think
uh,
that's like it does undeniably with the whole thing get off the trail. I will say that's the one part that doesn't really make sense because when you look at it, her motivation for killing herself there is like bad because they already believe her and that doesn't seem justified. But I mean, just like in your brain, knowing that the cult is right about there being the one with this magical power, because my brain then immediately is like, well, they're probably justified with the water and the sex thing. Right, like that's how my brain is, and that's why I think it's weird
they
when
have to keep it pure.
we say religion is real or a piece of religion is real because then like you start to in my brain apply it to everything they're saying. This was my issue with like Saint Maud. This is why I thought Saint Maud was
Oh,
strange at
okay.
the end because it's weird to be like you this whole time you're like they're not and then it is a demon. It's like, well, are we implicitly saying gay people are demons? Are we saying this? Like, I don't know if we're not because I don't think it says that they're not, but
Oh,
like I don't know, I kind of believe that they probably are right about the water. I mean, they know that this person has magical power. They know the prophecy. The prophecy is real. The prophecy is saying the water and sex thing, unless the point is that they're lying about that, which could be because that's what they kind of imply at the beginning. But I think that's also the point of it is you have these two stories where the toxic like relationship is clearly like often, so you immediately are like, I need to villainize the toxic power dynamic here. But again, it's raising a complexity where it's like, well, if it's for this woman who if we have the power to bring people back from the dead, I guess that's an entire moral argument you can have. But like that is then could change things to a degree that like is it worth it? I don't know. I would also think the politics of how they use rape in this is interesting because why is it there? I've heard a lot of people be like, I don't get why it's there. I think it's very clearly trying to justify a bit why Emma Stone would want out of that relationship and want out of that situation,
He's a creepy
to show that
husband.
he's a horrible person. Oh, he's
Yeah.
horrible. But yeah, I just, when you break it down, it's just like, I think this one is probably the most complex because even the first one presents a toxic relationship, but then it doesn't try to like have this four-dimensional chess on like, well, maybe actually it's justified, and then asking when is toxic relationships justified, which I guess then is the complexity of religion, right? And just like the entire thing. So yeah, I love the third one. Maybe I just like love the third one actually.
The key for the film for me, and I wrote this in the Clapper review. I don't know if it's been published yet by the time this goes out. Um, but the key for this entire film for me is the opening song. It's the Sweet Dreams song because that's what it says. Like some of them want to use you, some of them want to be used by you, some of them want to abuse you, some of them want to be abused. It's like, I think in the first story, ultimately, and I know some people like that, to be honest, like not again to that extreme, but I know people who really, really, really need someone to tell them what to do. They really need to be like in a submissive relationship. They need to be in a workplace where it's just like, you tell me what to do and I'm gonna do it. Don't give me freedom, don't give me creativity, because I don't know what to do with that. And with this one again, like religion gives you rules, tells you what to do in life, what's right and what's wrong. And it's so, like all religions, there's some incredibly questionable ways they go about it. Like, oh, to judge the purity of someone, which means it's like a purity of sexual, apparently it's like sexuality, or maybe even just drinking, because their people are forced into a sauna until they collapse and they
Yeah.
are and they are completely sweated out, and then Hong Chow, one of the cult leaders, just licks them to judge if they are again, that close up on the tongue, amazing
Yeah.
stuff. That's cinema for me. um it's this way of judging the purity, and again, it's ridiculous, but a lot of, I mean, is it less ridiculous than one by one going in line to eat a piece of bread that's the body of someone, and drinking wine that's the blood of someone? It's silly. It's so silly. But I do like what you say about, is it justified in the end? I'm not gonna get into Saint Maud because that's another podcast waiting to happen. I need to
Right.
rewatch the movie before I say more. But I don't know. Like for me, the moment, what I really like about the ending of the film is that for once in the three stories, things are starting to look up for someone, which leads to the the cunty dance of, Emma Stone with Brand New Bitch in the background, and the credits start to roll, and it puts you into that sense of security, false sense of security, because every other story has ended with the credits playing over a song, and you have Emma Stone doing that dance. Oh, she's gonna get back into the cult, and then the movie has one more scene. It's gonna go. It's like people just cannot have good things in these stories. Like life isn't fair. Life is a tragic comedy, and like you said, biggest laugh out of all the five people that were left at my screening as well, because it's the only part of the movie that I expected. The moment the film kept going, I was like, this is not going to end well for her. And there you go, like she's denied a way to get back into the cult, they've lost the one, life is meaningless again for her. Life is meaningless for all of these people in one way or another by the time they reach the end credits. Like we go after the end credits with this story, with the others we don't, but if we go with the others as well, you're gonna get Willem Dafoe asking something crazier out of Jesse Plemons. You're gonna get, like you said, the mother cycle repeating with with the cop and the wife. And with this one, this is a chance of getting the glimpse. It could have ended with her just dancing. Be a good movie. And I was like, yeah, nice. They've brought RMF out of life. Is it the same RMF from the first story? Maybe, maybe not. Does it matter? I don't know. He gets his sandwich and he spills blood on his shirt. Oh, ketchup, sorry, on his shirt. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just like, I don't know.
um
I just took a
no,
tangent. I was like, yeah, you know.
yeah.
Um, it's a good story. I think. Um, Out of the three, I do believe the first one could have been like in the mid to late 2000s. It could have been its own Lanthimos film. Make it
Okay.
70 minutes, 80 minutes, and it could have worked as like with a couple more scenes. Second one, messiest out of all of them. But the third one is probably the most. I don't know if well put together is the right term for this, but just
Complete in a way, would you say?
yeah, yeah. It feels
Yeah.
fitting that this is the last one. If this was put in like the opening, wouldn't work. Halfway through, what do you even end on? To have it end like this in this way, I think it's a good structure to the whole film. Um,
Agreed.
and
Yeah,
it's the
I think
most
for sure.
energetic, just in terms of like
Most energetic.
vibrant colors. The purple
Sure.
Dodge Challenger. It's just like
Oh, also in sound design, kind of naturally with how they use the car,
yeah.
but definitely a little bit thrilling at times. Yeah, I would say it feels most complete. This one feels the most like it all comes together. I do think this one almost is basically like its own little feature film, especially if you are going for like 70, 80 minutes. It would be really easy to turn this into one.
Mhm.
Again, my only complaint is that all the advertising, even the full, I don't know if you've seen the full official clips they released, but it's like key moments in this third one where luckily I don't watch like much marketing. This was after the fact, thank God. But like if I would have watched all those things hyped, it would have ruined the third one for me, which ruins like I don't know, it builds to this. Um, but overall, I guess getting into overall thoughts on this, I talking about it definitely like this more than I did on a first just in my brain. Um,
Yes.
undeniably worthwhile. I think it's strange some people are walking away from this film and they're like, this is just mindless. This is just Lanthimos like doing fun stuff, but it's a brain dead film. I don't get any of that. I think this is a film that has a lot of things it's trying to talk about when it comes to power dynamics in these three varied settings. Some are very similar, some have very different elements. I don't know if it conceptually comes together to like poor things I walk away from. And I'm like, this has a brilliant thesis, and I'm digging into this thesis. I love it. It's well thought out. This is definitely more taste testing these rather than diving into a full meal. But
Mm.
I really think it's entertaining. I really do think it is for what it is worthwhile. Maybe if it was released as a little bit of a mini series, I would be a little bit more positive on just like that it doesn't go deeper into some of its thoughts. But I think the only complaint I have is majorly is the runtime. I think it's a little
Mhm.
long. It is long. It is a
It
long
is
film to
undeniably,
engage
yeah.
with. But overall strong. And again, I really do want to give props. I think Jesse Plemons is fantastic here. Good cast
And
overall.
winning
But
performance, which
yes,
has
at the
been
can.
very
He won a
downplayed even
can.
in the marketing. I don't know why they're not pushing that more.
I don't know why no one is talking about it. But I don't think it's we don't not this is not the point of the show. I don't think it's gonna translate to like Oscars, but I greatly
Nothing in this
appreciated it.
movie will get any award recognition by the time we get to the end, and I think it's better for it.
Sure.
I'm so happy for Lanthimos, for Emma Stone, and for everyone who worked on this project, which is like I know there's some people that really don't like Poor Things and The Favorite. They don't like Tony McNamara as a screenwriter. They really don't like how these movies feel like Oscar bait in a way that I thought was ridiculous when The Favorite came out. And then it went on to receive like 11 Oscar nominations. Same thing happened with Poor Things. So, in a way, I don't know, were they bait? I don't think they were trying necessarily to be, but they definitely attracted that type of crowd. And this is on the other end of the spectrum. This is like people who love Poor Things are gonna be among those that leave in the first hour. So and I think
I
that's
love that.
amazing. I love that. I love that. We need more movies. I don't remember who said this. Like I was having this conversation with someone last month, and we were having the Cannes Film Festival where Kinds of Kindness premiered, other movies premiered. I was talking with a friend who was like, "No one seems to be loving the same movie. Like we're not getting that one film that everyone loves." I was like, that's actually pretty good. Because like I've gone to the Venice Film Festival for 7 years now. I'm not gonna go this year for the first time since 2017 2016. I'm not gonna go. And every year it's tiring to go there and be like, oh, there's the one movie that everyone loves. It wins all the awards. It's like, fuck, okay. So it's way more exciting to go somewhere where you don't know what's going to win and it doesn't really matter. And you have different people connecting to different stories. And I totally get why some are not connecting with Kinds of Kindness. A bit dismissive. I have like someone that I follow on Letterboxd who said, "This is just going through the motions. I'm sure it all means something. I don't care enough to investigate." Which I'm just like, oh, you want to make films? Try to
Yeah.
investigate. I think it has. It is not my favorite Lanthimos. I did a ranking. It is lower tier, to be honest.
What
You know,
is below it for you? Because again, I like this film. I'll probably change it and move it up one, but for me, it was actually the lowest. But I think it's going to go above Dogtooth once we get to it. But
I think it is the a bit above Dogtooth, Nimic, and
okay,
Necktie, which is like short films, whatever.
sure.
Um, but
Have you seen Alps?
it's the last one that I have to watch. Alps.
Same.
I think it was like on movie or something. It's like one of those movies. Every time I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I should watch that, and then I never do.
Yeah.
But I do prefer. Again, I prefer the other films, but also I've had what, like 6, 7, maybe 8 years to digest Lobster, to digest Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Oh yeah, that's a
I
lot.
felt similarly shell shocked after I watched Killing of a Sacred Deer. I was like, this is fucked up. I don't know what to make up of it. And then, the more I talk about it, the more I think about it. It's just like, I haven't seen it since, but it's still vivid in my mind.
Oh,
Lanthimos
same.
manages to make movies that you really don't want to watch again. And one of the good things that I can say about this one, like you mentioned, I really do want to watch it one more
Yeah.
time at least. I was actually tempted to go again, but I didn't want to go by myself because it was just, I've done it already. It
Sure.
feels weird, but I didn't know who to convince and who to bribe to come with me. And I know they probably wouldn't have talked to me ever again. So,
Sure.
like when it comes out on Disney Plus, alongside
You're not
Star
wrong.
Wars: The Acolyte or whatever, it's like, let's
Hell yeah.
watch this. Yeah. Oh man, good film.
Um,
Good film, man.
yeah, good film. Halfway we talked about it. Lanthimos, like I will say this about Lanthimos, and we talked about Poor Things, obviously, but like it was a number of years we went without a new Lanthimos film. We
Yeah.
got two within a year release. We're getting a third one very shortly in comparison to what he's done in the past. And even though he's reaching new heights with his previous two films, as far as mainstream popularity, as far as awards, we've seen a natural rise actually going back to The Lobster, where it's like everyone is bigger and bigger. This proves to me he's not getting lost in that. He's not just making movies to win an Oscar. He still is fucking Yorgos Lanthimos. He's still bringing his tone. He's still going to do what he thinks is fun. And that really excites me. And the fact that we're getting just more output. This film, and it's funny to say because I love Poor Things. Poor Things is my favorite Lanthimos
It's
film.
it's my number
But
one as well. It's like Poor Things and Lobster tied.
right. So it's weird, like this would be a takeaway from a film I love, but I was really worried, like, is he just going to continue to try to make films for the mainstream and to win that award? Because you see that with the most talented directors in the world, they will get into that cycle, and that will just start to be their cycle, and that will just start
Hmm.
to be their output. Not that it's all bad, not that every film like that is naturally bad, but it just is disappointing when you have someone who has such a unique voice
Yeah.
as Lanthimos, and I'm very positive on him and his direction after this. And before too long, we'll be back on the podcast talking about another one.
Yeah.
So if you want to see Kinds of Kindness, it is exclusively in theaters right now. As Nick mentioned, weirdly came out in like Italy 2 weeks ago. I know it got some type of release in the US and elsewhere this week. Next week is the UK is getting it. Sadly, Jack couldn't be here because of the release date for that. And I think it also goes wider in the US next weekend. But I think we would both recommend you give this a shot,
Mm.
even if it is not the best Lanthimos film. With that said, let's go to our question of the week. We're about halfway through the year when it comes to film releases. Last week, we asked what was your favorite film of the year so far. So before, and I didn't tell you we were going to do this, I just quickly want to know your answer for that. What is your favorite film of the year so far?
I saw the TV Glow. Hands down, film of the
Oh, yeah.
year, baby film of the decade. Still one of the very few movies I've seen twice at a film festival. I was just like, I'm gonna skip whatever else nonsense that's I haven't seen yet first. I'm gonna watch TV Glow again. It's amazing. Easily my number one. What's
And
yours?
uh, mine right now is mine right now is Challengers, but I Saw the TV
Hey,
Glow
yeah.
is number two. Those traded spots when I first watched I Saw the TV Glow, that took over number one. And then I watched both again. I saw the TV Glows a second time in theaters, obviously. And I was like, it's a 5 stars, undoubtedly. But Challengers has my heart. So Challengers number one, but
You know,
I saw the TV Glows.
it's
Also,
way
what a way to expose that you don't listen to the podcast, fake fan.
true. It's not like I was on the
uh,
episode.
True.
To be honest, like
Um,
it's very easy to be like, yeah, let's just watch Challengers instead of being like, you know what, I
totally.
really want to watch tonight.
It's like a
Uh,
drug. It's actually tempting that at any moment I could just turn on Challengers and go through that.
they gave it to you way too
And
quickly. You should have waited longer for the DVD and the VOD to come out.
well, I was sad because I have multiple friends who couldn't make it to Challengers, and then I'm like, oh, we'll go together. And you look on the site, and it's like you have 15 showings of If today, but 0 showings of Challengers. Great, that doesn't do a lot for me. Which I, by the way, I'm not gonna mention this in reviews. I watched If, and it was absolute garbage. But
Shocker.
yeah, no, right? But at least though it's on VOD because now I can at least show the friends there. But I wanted to take them to the theater. I saw the TV Glows had that same issue where at my place it literally got 1 week of theatrical release, and I was like, well, I wish this was in theaters longer, and I hate that it's going to VOD in like 2 weeks. But at least that means you can watch it. I think if we want
Yeah.
to address the VOD issue, we need to address that films need to have longer than a week, like actually good movies, and not just Garfield, because I could go see Garfield or Kingdom of the Planet Apes again. I don't really want to, but I just think that's kind of bullshit. But
Yeah.
question of the week this week, because we've not even asked you yet, what is your most anticipated movie for the rest of 2024? I can go quickly because it's going to be somewhat obvious. I have a few answers I'll give. Obviously, Luca Guadagnino's Queer, which I don't know if actually these first two will be even technically coming out this year, but obviously very excited for that film as a Lucas stan. We will be on the podcast reviewing it. I just got the audiobook version of Queer
Hey.
today, so I'm gonna give it a listen. But let's not do that today. And then we have, of course, Paul Schrader's Oh Canada, because I'm a Paul Schrader stan. My stan card is being activated today. So definitely those two I'm excited for. Maybe I'm being basic, but those two definitely I'm excited for. I also will say, like, every day, and I've not even seen the original film, the hype for Twisters grows more and more. And I think everyone is on that
Yes.
same wavelength where, like, I talk to so many people who most of them have not even seen the original, but like, or at least they don't really care about the original. But this film is going to be the movie of the summer, and we all need to be ready for it. And I literally added it to the ClapperCast schedule because I want to talk about it because I'm excited for it.
Yes.
Nick, what movies are you excited for the rest of the year?
Twisters, man. Like every time it comes on the trailer, I'm just like, yes. It's one of those movies I was like, is this gonna be bullshit? Like, director of Minari doing a Twisters sequel 25, 30 years later, it just feels like a joke. And then you see the trailer and it's like, oh, and then you see Glenn Powell, like, oh. So, I'm in, my ass will be set. I will be doing the review of it. I'm excited. But also two more movies that I'm looking for. Well, yeah, two and a half. Really looking forward to Nosferatu. Probably my
Did you see
actual.
the trailer?
No, they haven't showed.
Okay.
I went to that freaking bike riders news fest. No, they didn't. They didn't show any new trailers. They showed they showed 3 different Despicable Me 4 trailers. I don't know why. It's like I got in, first thing they showed, then it's just like adverts, then it's Disney, Inside Out again, even though it's already in cinemas, but whatever. Then they showed Despicable Me again, and then before the movie started, they had like a cinema specific, like with the View, basically like the British equivalent of the View here as a chain, and they had a specific trailer for that as well before the actual movie started. Anyway, I'm losing myself in the Minions. Um, Nosferatu, I'm excited for. I haven't seen the trailer. Might actually skip it if I can, unless they show it at the cinema, because I'm very much excited for it. I don't need anything to sell me on it. My actual very anticipated movie, and I know you're gonna be. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but very soon you're gonna be watching it. Long Legs. Oz Perkins, man, I don't want to fall in the hype trap. I follow a couple of trusted people who said the marketing is misleading, which is exactly how I feel about it. It's like they're pushing it way too hard to be an event film. I doubt it's going to be an event film, but I'm excited for it, especially to finally experience a Osgood Perkins film on the big screen. Whew, it's going to be a treat. The half, mainly because of just twisted curiosity, but it's Terrifier free. Terrifier 1, I didn't really like it, even though it gave me nightmares. I think I was just like sick that day, but I dreamt the Terrifier Art the Clown after I watched the first one. And the second one, it's very impressive. I respect it a lot. It has no reason to be 2.5 hours long for whatever it is. Just like, why are you doing this? Terrifier 3, I think, is going to be a good time. They have a higher budget. It's going to be gross gore. That's my half anticipated. But probably,
I
honestly,
haven't
long legs
seen
for the soon second half of the year, and Nosferatu for the latter half of the year.
Long Legs. I am so excited for because I am an Oz Perkins stan. I
Yeah.
saw Gretel and Hansel, y'all. I was there that January and I watched that thing and I said this is underrated. Blackwood's
Wow.
Daughter, very good. But it's been a while since we got a new one of him, and he's releasing another one in February, also just like turning it around.
Yeah.
But that film has had such a fascinating marketing campaign to where like in January they just started email critics like weird shit that wasn't even like directly noticeably tied to Long Legs. They've been doing this really like slow build of it feels like a big deal, and everyone who sees it, who they're people I trust. They're not like just like, oh, influencers who are gonna like everything. They're like, this is really quite something good. um I'm excited. I'm super pumped for Long Legs. I'm happy you mentioned that. I just think like when you look at everything about that film, it's just not traditional in how they're marketing and selling it, but it clearly is in a way where they think they have something with it. So
Hmm.
I'm excited for that, just on like a pure curiosity standpoint. Plus, it's my boy, so I'll always support my
Yeah.
boy. So with that, let's go to our rapid reviews. This is our time to talk about anything we saw that we've not talked about on the podcast today. I have a whole list because I've been doing Pride Month stuff, so I'm just
Yay,
going
let's
to
go.
try to
Make me
get through them.
happy.
Quirrell, which I have, and I guess have the Blu-ray
Hey.
right here. What a visually stunning film. Super campy, gets a little lost in some of the side plots. Specifically, there's like a murder plot in here that it starts to get really distracted by, but like genuinely one of the most stunning films I've seen visually, from the colors to the campy production design to the composition and shot composition and the cinematography. Like, just stunning work here. I think if anyone, again, this is one of those where it's like, I talked about this with Challengers, the screenplay, but if I ever became a famous filmmaker and went to the Criterion closet, I would have that moment where I'd be looking on the shelf and I'm picking on my Blu-rays and I'd say, oh, Quirrell, this film inspires how I visually want my movies to look like, because I think it is beautiful. Like, truly cannot state enough how beautiful that film is. 2013's Last Summer, very, very tender little queer film about two gay guys, their senior year in high school, and they're like counting down the days as they're gonna have to move to college and they have to figure out their lives. And just very emotional, but very, very tender. I've been watching a lot of Derek Jarman. I would love to talk about him
Mm,
on the podcast eventually. But especially I watched specifically Blue
mm.
finally. um, Whew. Very artistic, but very, very beautiful, but very haunting. Definitely one of those art house films where it's like, it will hit you. It definitely hits. I would just recommend. I wouldn't recommend you don't know anything about it. Just go into it. And I think it's like one of
Yeah.
those essential queer films that everyone needs to experience, because it really is unlike anything else. But oh damn. I watched Frank Simon's The Queen, 1968 documentary about a drag performance or drag competition in New York City.
Okay.
To be 1968, before when this took place, I believe it was before Stonewall. Like, that's insane to see these individuals being portrayed so humanly, going into their lives, seeing them express who they are. It's inspiring. It's fun. It's short. It's only like an hour long. Would highly recommend it. Bruce LaBruce, I know you know him, Nick. I watched a lot of his films and actually been quite enjoying them.
Hey.
Specifically, Otto or Up with the Dead People.
Oh, Jesus,
I thought
man.
was so fun. No, like if you, I have a really soft spot in my heart for zombie content. I think zombies are like thematically just such a rich side of horror. For college, I literally took an entire class all about zombies in media, and how they've been used and how they can be used. And I think this was like a really wonderful film to showcase that. Tragic, emotional, but very, very fun and funny. Would
It's shot
recommend.
on the definition of a shoestring budget. Looks like
Oh yeah,
absolute shit.
garbage. Oh, it looks terrible, but that's part of the
Berlin
charm.
never looked worse than in that film.
I know you really enjoyed Passages. I also did, but I watched his directorial debut, The Delta, which was a very interesting queer film
Hey.
about a white teenager who starts to have like this gay cruising encounter with this black Vietnamese immigrant, and they kind of talk about they fall in love kind of over 24 hours, let's say, and then they go their separate ways. And it's very like this is the type of film, not to get into can. I'm not going to say anything about this. All I'll say, this is the type of film Sean Baker wishes he could make. Not even that I dislike that
Oh,
guy, but like this is what people watch that man's films and be like, this is what they're doing, and he's like, it's not, but this is what he's trying to do, and it's really quite moving and powerful. Shout out Palme d'Or winner All About Sex, who did not have a sex counselor on the crew. Kind of weird. That's needed, everyone. Please. I don't like that narrative. That's like my least favorite narrative online. People are like, you don't need intimacy coordinators.
they're gonna police you.
Just get them. Just get them. I don't care that one actor says they don't need them. Out of a pair of actors having sex, I don't need one just say no.
Jennifer Aniston, but we don't care.
Yeah.
Shut up. Let people do their work. I've used Intimacy Coordinator on a project last month. It was amazing. It's like she did her own thing. We're gonna go in the room and just do our exercise. Like, that's amazing.
Sure.
I'm gonna come on
And
set and I'm just gonna tell you what to do, and we know they're protected. If something's wrong, they're gonna tell you. I was like, it's fine.
It's just wild that with everything we know about like also this industry and this like the last 10 years, much less just common decency, even if someone thinks, even if you're doing a stunt coordination and a stunt person says, I don't need this harness right here, you're probably going to give them the harness, right? Like there's just
Or
a
change
logic in,
actor.
like, being responsible for people's safety, especially in a space where we've seen that there's been a lot of issues. And then for the narrative to be like, actually, it's not really needed and it's stupid. I don't get it. But valid Sean Baker for not hiring one for his film All About Sex. And then finally, I finished The Waters filmography. I think I mentioned this, but I didn't go into the film. I just especially want to mention Serial Mom. So fun. Just what a grand
Yes.
old time. I'm in LA, obviously, if you can't tell by the set right now, in Paul Price's house for longtime viewers. But I went to the Academy Museum the other day because I wanted to revisit his exhibit now that I've seen everything. Like, now I can really appreciate the Pecker section because I've seen Pecker. But
Is there a lot of memorabilia from Pecker?
yeah, they have like a whole section for each film. They have his camera and everything, but like the Serial Mom has all the outfits, and I was really living. I was like, this is iconic.
Do they have the letters, the original letters?
Oh yeah, no, they have the signs,
Man,
they have like everything.
that's so
But
cool.
what a great filmography. I mean, like we talked about him. Obviously, we had the Patreon episode. I'm sure we've mentioned him a bunch in rapid reviews and stuff. But like, go watch this filmography if you've not. There's so many great films in it, and just gives me a joy. I'm looking at it right now on Letterboxd, and it just gives me an absolute joy to see all these movies.
And you've read
So
Liar Mouth.
I have read Liar Mouth, and I'm very excited for the film that we are getting. Let's manifest this. It's important we say we are getting it with Aubrey Plaza.
Yes.
Originally, I was like, just on concept, I was like, I don't know about Aubrey Plaza, like in a John Waters film. It feels like a little too obvious. And then I read Liar Mouth, and literally from the first chapter, you're like, oh,
I see it,
there's
yeah.
not a single person on this earth who can play it like Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So that's my very long Pride Month spiel. Nick, what have you seen recently that you would like to discuss?
I'll try to be brief. I don't want to go into a long rant. First of all, I've been watching a lot of TV recently. And someone's going to be very happy to know I have been watching Servant, finally. I think when we did the Village episode in 2021, you recommended it. Took me a while to get here, but I'm watching it. I am loving it. It's great. It's just my speed. It's way less creepy than I expected, and it's more funny than I thought it would be, which is exactly how most Shyamalan projects are. And I'm excited to see where it goes, because to know it's set entirely inside this house, limited cast, pre-COVID, that was just like they got super lucky with this project, because if this were bigger, it would have been cancelled probably. But instead, it's all in one set, only for actors pretty much, with some guest recording episodes. Anyway, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Smiling Friends. I started watching it on a whim. I'm almost done with season 2. It's just like, I'm not one for adult animation, but this one just tickles my fancy, you'd say. My type of humor. I finished the Fallout show. It's all right. It's all right. Feels a bit stretched. Could have been like 5 episodes, 6 episodes that lasted 30 minutes, not 1 hour every single one of them. but it's cool. I now get Star Wars fans when they see something they recognize, because this show ends with a character walking towards New Vegas, and they play the sting from the video game Fallout New Vegas, and I audibly like gasped, was like, oh! And everyone in my family was like, what? I was like, you don't get it. It's going to New Vegas. It's my. I've seen you. I've been there. I spent 100 hours on that game, so it was very exciting. But yeah, TV is good. The Boys is not good. I'm tired of The Boys. I've liked it before, but it's just again, I'm done with 1 hour long TV shows. They're so long. You need to justify it in some way. I don't know if you've been watching it actually.
I
Um,
quit after season 2 because
Smart choice.
it just started to drag. I obviously season 1 was very fun on premise, and then
And fresh.
that's the thing with a lot of those shows. Like Invincible was similar, and for me, where it's like it's a good concept, and then it doesn't hook me to keep going.
But Carson, they're gonna kill Homelander this episode. It's happening. This is the time they're gonna do it. Oh man, it's just so and they keep adding new things. I don't know, it's fascinating. I think it should be studied in like 5 or 10 years, how we have hour-long TV shows that are simultaneously sluggishly paced and also incredibly rushed with characterization. We're only spending time with characters doing character shit, and it still feels like nothing's happening, and we're not learning anything more about them. Anyway, in terms of movies, I've seen a lot of stuff. More recently, just like highlights, What's Up Doc? It's an incredible comedy. It's been recommended to me by a lot of people. Peter Bogdanovich doing a live action Looney Tunes with Ryan O'Neal and Barbara Streisand. It has an insane car chase through the streets of San Francisco that is worth the watch alone. Bike Riders, one of the most underwhelming films I've seen all year. I watched it 4 days ago now. It has left me with nothing. First hour, I was like, oh man, it's pretty good. I'm starting to fall asleep, but it's pretty good, And then nothing happened. There's no subversion. There's nothing. Um, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about Jeff
I'm a
Nichols.
fan.
I like him. This is his weakest project because it feels like it's not adding anything to it. It's a Goodfellas clone. It starts off like one, and I thought, oh, he's going to subvert it, and then it ends exactly like that. I've had someone on Twitter tell me that it's a very original story. I was like, it's been done 1,000 times before. You know, Guys avoiding their troubles by becoming a gang or doing something criminal, yada yada. It gets big, it's amazing, it's fun. Then it starts getting worse. The wife is like, you have to stop doing this or I'm gonna leave you. It's ruining our relationship. And the guy's like, I'm too cool for this. And then it's just, things end in a bit of tragedy. It's like, what the? Oh, I've seen this. I don't know. Disappointing. Um, I've rewatched Love Lies Bleeding, still slaps. Bad Boys Ride or Die was enjoyable. Last Night in Soho still slaps. The Beast, potential contender for Best of the Year, Bon and Low. Something I want to rewatch a lot, to be honest, because it's very thought provoking. We could easily be doing like an Henry James special in a year or so and talk about this film. Jerry Maguire, I watched on a day when I was feeling very blue, and it gave me newfound life. I finally watched Spider Verse Across the Spider Verse. Again, why does it have to be 2.5 hours long? Like your green, Carson said everything. And the last one I will end on, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. It's a movie that again I watched in the cinema. I really liked it, and the more I think about it, the more I love it. And the more it's staying with me. And I really, really desperately want to watch it again. And I think it's dropping like soon on VOD. I haven't had a chance to go watch it again. When I was leaving Bad Boys, I went past the screening room and I just heard like, they've taken Furiosa. And I was like, I could do this. Like I have nothing going I have nothing going on now. No one's gonna notice. The screen is gonna be empty. I'm just gonna watch Furiosa again. But then I didn't. I don't know, did you like it, Furiosa? I don't remember reading a review or anything, or if you gave your thoughts.
So similar. Well, I guess this is a good update because every week Jack asks me. I've still not seen it. This
Okay,
week
okay.
will be the week. I'm gonna go see it this week because I really want to see it in theaters, and I know if it comes out on VOD, it will be really difficult for me to be like, I need to go to a theater to see it because I could just stay at home. But I'm gonna see it this week. I promise everyone. Next week when we come back for the podcast, I will have seen it.
I'll
But
leave
every
you
week
up to
Jess
it.
asks me that. Yeah.
I'm gonna hold you up to it. It's very episodic in a way I was not expecting, which felt like a weakness at first. But then on further reflection, each sequence has its own pacing, has its own vibe. It's such a rich film. I remember I read someone saying that they liked it more than Fury Road. It felt like hyperbole, recency bias. I'd have to rewatch them because there's so much more
Um,
depth to this one. It'll be interesting. I'll
it,
be interested to see what you think.
do you like Beyond Thunderdome? Just
I do, yeah,
random
yeah,
Mad
yeah.
Max question.
I
So you
like
would
all the Mad
say
Max films.
okay.
I only
You would say
love
Fury Road though is
to,
number one.
yeah,
Yeah.
that and Road Warrior. I would put number one.
Oh,
They're the only like five
interesting.
stars
Love
that I
that.
have. Yeah, Road Warrior feels like Fury Road is impressive. Road Warrior
Yeah,
just feels dangerous. Like someone shared a clip
that's fair.
recently on Twitter, and I was just watching it. I was like, it's two cars, man. It's just two cars, and I'm
Yeah.
sweating so hard. There's just something about 70s and 80s cinema where you didn't have the CGI and all of that when they tried to
Oh
pull these
yeah.
things off. Like I said, the What's Up Doc chase, it's a comedy. It's a slapstick comedy. There are some stunts in that where I was actually like shaking. I was like, how did they pull this off? How did no?
Yeah.
There's like people crossing the street with two motorcycles, just like narrowly avoiding them. It's insane that no accidents happened. It's and
Sure.
Mad Max is like that.
I love Beyond Thunderdome. I
Eh,
just watched the first ones for the first, or the first three for the first time this year. Or I guess I would technically rewatch the first one. I don't really care for the first one. Second one is fine. Love Beyond Thunderdome. And then I rewatched Fury Road and I was like, it's really good, to be clear. But I was like, maybe I like Beyond Thunderdome a little bit more, which
It,
is my
it,
Mad Max hot take.
it's a
That's such a good
Carson
movie.
film. It's a
Oh
Carson
yeah,
film.
big time. But I am excited for Furiosa. I need to go see it. It's one of those like also you have to see it in the theater, and sadly I missed the IMAX and everything, but like um hopefully I can see it. So
Yeah, it feels so it's so weird, and I totally get it because honestly, I'm the first one who's done it with other movies. But it feels so weird when there's films like Furiosa that come out, even First Omen that come out, where people go to the cinema to watch them, and they go, wait, it's amazing, go watch it, go now, go now," and then just no one does. And that was funny, and we just felt like we all have lives, and if you don't have the push to go do it, I'm the first one who's like, nah, maybe next week, and then you never do, and then you actually watch it, and it was for people that I followed, that I specifically told them like, go watch First Omen on the big screen. Yeah, I'll do that, I'll do it. Then they never did. Now they've seen it on Disney Plus that's come out. They're like, fuck, I should have seen this in the cinema. I was like, again, I get it. It's not that type. It's like, why are we like this? We are failing our cinema, our
right,
culture.
open the schools, aka IMAX
But
cinemas.
we talked about this, I think, like a
Yeah,
month ago or something. There's just too many movies coming out, and
there's so much, and
budget,
people are
but especially
busy.
time. Time is so vital.
It would be a good episode to just talk about like the status of the theatrical experience because I think it's so many things where it's
Yeah,
like you've been trained now that everything will be out in a month and a half on VOD. You've been trained that most films are terrible. So
yeah.
like if you're going to take a risk, and that's something I've been going through this year because I like seeing good movies on the big screen, but I'm sick of wasting my time with bad films on the big screen. So it's like you really
Amen.
have to measure your like risks and be like it's fascinating the industry that they've built because it just feels so bad for theatrical releases, and most of the theaters suck also. So it's just like I don't know, it's a rough situation overall. But
I'm becoming a
next,
champion of the 3 to 3.5 star movies that are way better on the big screen. If I had seen Bad Boys Ride or Die by myself or with maybe, I don't know, my dad or whatever at home, I'd be like, ah, it's whatever. Watching it in a cinema on the big screen with people around me were like cackling like madmen during it. I was like, this is fun. I was just sitting there with a grin. I was like, this is fun. It's a dumb movie. It has so many issues. The villain is non-existent, but this is fun.
that does it for our episode on Kinds of Kindness. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
Soon on the podcast, if you want to join us next weekend, we are going to be reviewing Jurassic Park for our Summer of Blockbusters series. However, that one is a Patreon exclusive. So if you've been enjoying that series and you don't want to miss an episode, subscribe to our Patreon. On our normal feed here, we'll be back in 2 weeks as we're going to discuss Maxine, Ty West's film. We're continuing that universe, the X universe, and we're going to continue with Maxine, which supposedly is pretty good according to early reviews. So we will see how that goes. Nick, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nickira97 to follow all of my cinematic endeavors, especially as next month I'm starting a not Kickstarter, I have an Indiegogo campaign to help support the making of my next short film. If you got to the end of this episode, you probably like Sicko Cinema. This is going to be Sicko Cinema. It's going to get bloody, it's going to be sexy, it's going to have everything you want out of a good, a good sick twisted film. It's going to have romance, so, be tuned for that.
Love it. And you can find me on Twitter at BP_movie reviews, Letterboxd just Carson Timar. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, we'll be back next week on Patreon for Jurassic Park, in 2 weeks right here for Maxine. Goodbye.